So, if you've only just come into the Zoom room, welcome. Good to see so many people here. This is the first after Easter get together of the basic meditation class. Basic in the sense of it's where you begin and it's where you end. Fundamental, absolutely fundamental meditation. What I'd like to, if you're new to the class, I don't know how many people are, but if you're new to the class, it's going to be something like this. I'll give a few tips, hints, which I hope are helpful in the first little period of sitting, which will probably be for about, last it for about 20 minutes, something like that. And then I may say a few words, and then we'll sit again. And about 25 to 8, we'll probably stop for questions and answers. But please feel free to leave if you can't stand it any longer. Anyway, good to see you all. I think at the beginning of a period of meditation, it's always good to just ask ourselves why we're doing it, because of course, that's a question that until we've kind of seen its benefits, it's a good question of why am I doing this? This is, I don't know where you are, but I hope you're at such a beautiful, it's a beautiful sunny evening where you are. Why am I doing this rather than out and about? Why am I doing this rather than watching football on the television? Whatever. So let's think about why we're doing this. And here's something from the Vajrayana tradition, the Tibetan tradition, which I find extremely helpful. And it's all about doing it, for a very Buddhist reason, for liberating all beings, which includes, the person sitting where you are, liberating all beings from suffering, full and complete freedom from suffering. That's called enlightenment. And the motivation in that first, what do you want to call it, verse, stanza, with the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until the attainment of full enlightenment, with the wish to free all beings. Just notice that. That's the motivation. And each one of us is included in that, of course. And I should say that everybody here this evening, all 36 of us, we're all supporting each other in this practice. That's important to know. So, and then the second line is quite remarkable. Enthused by compassion and wisdom, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's like saying, right now, okay? Today in the Buddha's presence. Right now, I shall be going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's another way of saying waking up, getting enlightened, right? And we're doing it right now. There's an immediacy about this practice. I want to do the practice tonight rather than talk a lot. But the suggestion is we're all capable of enlightenment right now, actually. It's a remarkable thing to say, isn't it? So that potential right there, that Buddha mind right there, if we just wake up, you see, right there. And then the final, the suggestion is this practice it's immediate, it's an immediate practice. There's immediacy. But then it says, well, on the other hand, as it were, as long as space endures and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to the spell that miseries of the world. Even if each one of us realizes full and complete liberation from suffering, full and complete enlightenment before 8 o'clock tonight, we're saying we'll stick around to try and help all other beings. And so this is a very selfless practice. Don't be fooled by people who sometimes think, a weird thing if you understand nothing about Buddhism, but they say things like, aren't you just being very selfish? Just doing your own little thing there, sitting on your own little cushion, watching your own little breath. It's very selfish, isn't it? No, it's not. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha till the attainment of full enlightenment. Through by compassion and wisdom, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. So that's why we're doing it. What are we doing? Composing the body. The heart of this practice is something called mindfulness. Mindfulness, mindfulness to me is about, what's it about? The two key words to me are noticing and letting go. Knowing what's going on but not attaching to it. That's interesting. Knowing what's going on, particularly in the mind, but not attaching to it. And the letting, increasingly, I find myself thinking, the important thing is the letting go bit. Can I just pause for a moment and ask Wanda if you could put up the Buddha image now? The Buddha image, please. So noticing and letting go. As I say, it's the letting go, the not attaching thing that is really quite important and quite difficult. But it's the letting go, the relaxation, which is so important. The noticing requires alertness, and the letting go, the non-attachment, requires relaxation. And so our posture should reflect those two qualities, if we can do it. So ideally, for what it's worth, ideally, it would be nice if we sat, if we're all sitting, in an alert posture. Everybody's got to figure out what that means. Upright, I guess. Stable. And also relaxed, comfortable. A comfortable, upright posture. Relaxed posture. And we park the hands somewhere. I've got my hands actually on a cushion in front of me. Park the hands somewhere. You can just put them in the pockets, out of the way. And that parking of your hands is really quite interesting because most likely, you want to sort of fidget a bit and move your hands around. And let's not do that. Just park your hands out of the way somewhere. Make a lovely mudra gesture or just put them in your pockets, but park them. So a stable, upright, static, relaxed posture. A posture which, let's say, is alert but not tense. Please don't try too hard. Right? Do not try too hard. It's like, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of enlightenment. It's like, yeah, but don't try too hard. Maybe the secret is not trying too hard. Not being kind of goal-oriented. Just do it. Just do the practice. Be a bit Zen-like about it. Just sit. Just sit. An alert, relaxed, open-minded, I hope, posture. This is a mind-opening practice. So don't have too many preconceptions. That's quite easy, I think, if you're a total newcomer. Open-minded. I don't know what this meditation's all about. Well, that's a good attitude. When we've been practicing for a few decades, maybe we think we do know what it's all about. Open mind. That's an open-minded practice. Alert, relaxed practice, sitting, posture, open-minded. And now, I always like to do this. By the way, I should say that I'm not really encouraging anybody to do anything they haven't done before. If you're a long-time meditator, keep on doing what you're doing. But if you'd like to try it a different way, or if you're completely new to all of this, my suggestion is we bring attention into the body. How does the body feel? And that, in the first instance, has got something to do with the posture. Is it an alert posture? Is it an easy, comfortable, relaxed posture? So bring attention to how the body feels. And in particular, I mean, it's not exactly challenging. It's like, what are the major sensations we notice in the body? I'm sitting in a chair, my feet are on the floor. So I notice my feet on the floor. And because I just got back from a walk, actually, my legs are feeling quite warm. And I'm sitting on this chair, and so I feel the weight of the body on the chair, point of contact between me, backside, and chair. So notice that weight, heaviness. And I'm aware of the breath in the belly. And I park my hands somewhere. The hands are incredibly sensitive, aren't they? So wherever your hands are, they're feeling something, each other, or the warmth of, if they're in a pocket, just notice the feelings in the hands, in the palm of the hands, for example. One hand touching the other. And just relax the hands if they're not. It's like hands are made for hanging on to stuff, holding things. And we're not trying to hold anything very much this evening, so we could relax the hands, you see, letting go. If the practice is to let go, not to attach. Hands are very good at attaching, aren't they? So just relax them a bit. That's just a suggestion, you don't have to. Bring the attention up into the upper part of the body. You feel the ribs expanding and contracting. Actually, what we feel is the clothing touching our body, isn't it? And maybe you can feel the heartbeat. And up to the collarbone area, right up the top. Just check it out. Maybe we're a bit hunched. And it's not we shouldn't be. Just notice how we're feeling, actually. And we checked out the hands. Any sensations in the arms at all? Shoulders? Now, with the shoulders, it's like, if there's a lot of tension there, we notice that. Are we hanging on to some bit of worry, anxiety, anger? Okay, it sort of manifests perhaps in tension in the shoulders. And if we want to, we can just relax the shoulders under the weight of the arms. Breathe out, relax, let go, let go. And then sensations in the face, lips touching probably, jaw. Is the jaw tense? I don't know, but relax it if you want to. Saliva in the mouth, warmth of the room on the skin, breath on the nostrils, feelings around the eyes, which are probably closed or half open. I really do recommend closing the eyes, but half open. Forehead okay? Not trying too hard, are we? Or are we? The important thing is to know the story, what's going on. The scalp, the ears, the scalp. And one of my favorite things to notice is what's the sensations on the top of the head. Because most of the time, I don't have any sensations on the top of the head. So how interesting to notice the feeling of nothing at all. So good meditation practice is to scan the body from top to toe, from toe to top, being aware of sensations without any sort of judgment at all. It's of no consequence from this point of view of how we feel. The important thing is to notice a feeling itself, to experience the body, just a mass of sensations, not as male, female, young, old, black, white, this way, that way, old, young, whatever. That's all additional thinking, isn't it? It's just right now, how do we feel? Like this. And check out the mood. How's the mood? And is it tense or not? I'm not saying it should be. I am saying this might be a good opportunity to relax, but I mean, if it's tense, if we're feeling uptight and sad and angry, just be aware of that. It feels like this. And if we're extremely relaxed and comfortable, the mind's feeling expansive and happy, that's very good. Just notice it. Moods come and moods go. And during the course of a period of meditation, we may come in, feeling as happy as Larry. But then thoughts, memories might come into the mind. And by the end of it, you might feel pretty down. Everything changes. Or we might come in feeling really fed up with life. Do a bit of meditation. Get up at the end of it feeling it's okay. Moods change. Just like the sensations in the body, they change. They come and they go. They get louder. They get softer. They change. Just notice that. This is nature study, isn't it? Nature study. How's the body? How's the mood? How's the mind? Is the mind open, expansive, or is the attention clamped around some issue, some memory, some plan? A target for tonight. And mindfulness is just noticing all of this, but not tangling with it. I mean, it's difficult to practice this, but it's like, it's like, so you have an itch on your left armpit, and you have a plan for tomorrow in your head, and they both have the same status. You notice it and let go of it. You notice it comes and it goes. And to help us do that, the suggestion is we use a meditation object. There are many. I use the breath, or something called the sound of silence, whatever that is. But the breath's a good one. The feeling of breathing, not controlling it in any way. It does its own thing. I just notice that. In breath, out breath. Where do I notice it? Either in the abdomen. Can you feel that belly move? Or more refined places around the nostrils. Touch of the breath on the nostrils as we breathe in and breathe out. It's a nice little anchor, the feeling of breathing. And it's a calming meditation object. It's very peaceful. It's pacifying. Do this for a while, you get quite blissed out. But we're very attached to excitement and stimulation. And there's not much stimulus coming from the breath, frankly. So it's very easy for the attention to wander. And that's just another aspect of our nature, actually. But yet another aspect of our nature is we can pay attention to the wandering mind. We can attend to the attention. The attention wanders and we notice that. That's all part of the story we're watching tonight. How's the body doing? It feels this way. What's the mind up to? It's like this. It's thinking or not thinking. What's the attention doing? It's on the breath, but it's not on the breath. The way to use the meditation object then is like a little anchor. The anchor just kind of holds the boat. Not static, but it doesn't let it bobble off too far. The meditation object of the breath, the breathing in, breathing out, the feeling of breathing in, the feeling of breathing out. It's just a little reference point, a little anchor, so that when the attention does wander, it will wander. We notice that. And the trick is not to let it wander too far. We think, of course we think. But you know the way one thought leads to another thought leads to another, yak, yak, yak. We try and intercept that. Or just a little, make a little note, thinking, planning, Buddha, whatever it is. And very deliberately, this is the secret, very deliberately point the attention back to the breath. We're not kind of victims of what's going on in our heads. We can't take charge of things, you know. We don't have to cling on to everything that comes into the mind. It's difficult. But this is, in this practice, we notice what's going on. That's the noting bit of mindfulness. Thinking, feeling sensations, hearing things perhaps. Notice it. Let go. Back to the breath. Time and time again. Something comes into the mind. A sound comes in. A sensation comes in the body. We notice that. But we don't linger on it. We don't hang on to it. We don't cling it. We don't even push it away. We just redirect the attention back to that in-breath and that out-breath. Breathing in, breathing out. And get interested in the breath, not from the point of view of controlling it, but just tuning into its rhythm. Each breath begins, has a middle bit, and then ends. The in-breath begins, the in-breath ends, and out-breath begins, and out-breath ends. And without, in any sense, trying to explain what's going on, just be aware that the breath always changes. It's sometimes deep, it's sometimes shallow, it's sometimes long, it's sometimes short. There's no right way of doing it. The right thing to do is just to notice that. How interesting. And then the attention wanders. We notice that. We let go of whatever it's wanting to do, what it's attaching to, point the attention back to the feeling of the next in-breath or the next out-breath. And when the mind wanders, when the attention wanders, it's okay. Just notice it. Just don't let it wander too far, that's all. Gently intercept it. And gently but firmly redirect the attention back to the breath or whatever meditation object we're using. please feel free to move, stretch. Once upon a time, it seems like a long time ago, but in fact it was only just over a year. I'd come into London most Thursdays to look after this class, and because I live out of London a bit, I'd combine going to the Buddhist Society with doing various fun things during the afternoon, maybe going to a gallery or a research seminar somewhere because I'm an academic, and then on to the Buddhist. So I use a tube a lot. And one thing, I'm sure if you're a Londoner, you use the tube, you notice you get into some stations, particularly if you're in a carriage up towards the front, and the doors open, and then they've got a little message there, haven't they? It says, mind the gap, and it's mind the gap between the train and the platform edge. Mind the gap. And that's pretty good advice. Because you don't want to fall in the gap or drop your bag in the gap or anything like that. And so the suggestion with mind the gap between the train and the platform edge is to be a bit mindful in a particular sort of way. Mindful, if you like, in this very sort of practical, I was going to say worldly, I'll say it worldly way. Be careful, be attentive, pay attention. Is that sort of, I'm putting a bit of effort into it. Pay attention, mind the gap. Otherwise you'll fall into the hole. Take care. And you sort of tense up, don't you, when you do that? It's good advice in that particular situation. So it's like, what I'm suggesting, though, is in meditation practice, we might sort of do a different sort of mindfulness, where there's an invitation to explore gaps, to mind the gap. But this is not a tensing up sort of mind the gap. It's noticing pauses, it's noticing gaps. And far from tensing up to avoid the gap, to mind the gap, the suggestion is to relax, to let go, to step into the gap, actually. This is not a practice to do on the tube. This is formal meditation practice. Just mind the gap. To mind the gap on the tube, you have to notice the gap's there when you step off the train. In meditation practice, you have to notice pauses and gaps and just appreciate that gap. What's it like to, well, for example, when we're scanning the body, this is a good starter for this, actually. It's a good starter for this. When you scan the body, you notice significant big, can't miss some sort of sensations, like the feeling of sitting or feeling too hot or too cold, or what's going on with the shoulders, they tense or not. But then I really do like to put the attention on the top of the head because there's no sensation. So, here's a little gap, as it were. What's the sensation of no sensation? What's the feeling of no feeling? Just notice that. How's the mind handle that? That's interesting, isn't it? I think that's interesting. So when we're doing a body scan, use it to help set up the body, the alert, relaxed posture, to learn about how the body feels. Are we tense? Are we anxious? Are we relaxed or not? And then put the attention on the top of the head, where my guess is there's usually no particular sensation at all. It's a bit of a gap in this bombardment of physical sensations which are going on in the body all the time. is another mind the gap exercise we can do with a breath. I was sort of hinting at it, I think, a little while ago. Got an in-breath, we got an out-breath. The in-breath begins and then ends. The out-breath begins and then ends. Just notice what happens at the end of an in-breath, the end of an out-breath. Isn't there? I'm just asking the question. We breathe out. Is there a little gap? Is there a little pause before the in-breath kicks in? Don't try and regulate this. Please don't do. I mean, I've done all sorts of wacky things in my time. Don't attach, to the gap between breaths. That's really quite a foolish thing to do. Just pay attention to it. In that moment between the ending of an in-breath, the beginning and the ending of an out-breath, the beginning of an in-breath. So a pause, isn't it? Breathing in at the end of an in-breath. There's perhaps a little pause before the out-breath begins. Just notice these gaps and breathe in the breath. What's going on there? Pay attention to those gaps. And then silence. That's another interesting one. When I was coming into 58 Eccleston Square, quite a bit of noise there. And so we'd notice, I don't know, commuters driving around the square and notice the sound of the car or whatever it is, or maybe the police siren or the ambulance siren, and then it would go. And for a moment or two, there'd be, nothing, silence. That's interesting. And of course, composers use silence, gaps in their music as much as they use musical notes, don't they? Pregnant pauses. But what I'm really referring to, I suppose, is minding the gaps in thinking. Now, to do all of this, we have to pay attention. This is really advice or help or suggestions for people who've been doing this practice rather a long time. Slowing down a bit and noticing the breath. Long breath, short breath, in breath, out breath. Ending of a breath, beginning of another breath. You have to be quite attentive to be doing this. Quite attentive to be doing this. And with thinking, it's even more difficult perhaps, but it just requires calming down a little bit more and noticing what the mind is up to. Noticing what the mind is up to, and far from thinking being an enemy, just watching thinking. There's a thought, and a thought is like the breath. It begins, it sort of has its life, develops a bit, and then it ends. And then chances are another thought will begin and end. And the practice is not to suppress any of this. The practice is to observe it, to watch it. This is nature study. And remember that, what we're doing is watching the gaps in thinking. And that's a great practice to do because it tells us, in fact, we're not thinking all the time. We don't have to think all the time. I'm not talking about suppressing thinking at all. What I'm saying is, it's like coming to the level crossing, the train comes along, it's a blur, and gradually we realize there are gaps between the carriages. How interesting, Or going to a movie, and it's a slow motion movie. There's a frame, there's a gap, there's another frame, there's a gap. We're aware of the screen as much as we're aware of the action or inaction on the screen, And when we think, we often think in terms of words, don't we? I think, words. That's quite good. So just notice a gap when we stop verbalizing in that way. Well, that's quite interesting, you see, because what we're doing is we're paying as much attention, right, to consciousness itself, to awareness. We're noticing, that it's possible to be aware or conscious of a gap, of not thinking. We can be aware of not thinking. We can be aware of not hearing. We can be aware of not feeling. Isn't that interesting? So this is really quite interesting. And not commenting on it at the time, but reflecting on it afterwards. Oh, there was some gaps in the thinking there. How interesting. And that's really quite, insightful, I think. It's pointing to the difference between the contents of the mind and the basic quality of the mind itself, which is open, aware, non-discriminating, uh, 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 and words fail me beyond that. So let's sit for a bit longer now, compose the body again. For those who'd like to, compose the posture. For those who'd like to, once we've got settled, set up the posture, alert, relaxed posture. Park the hand somewhere. Tuned into our meditation object. And just noticing the rhythm of the breath. And little pauses or gaps. This is natural, isn't it? The natural breath, the ordinary breath, the unregulated breath begins, ends, gap, begins, ends. Now we notice the breath, the meditation object, and when the mind wanders and we begin to think, we pay attention to that. It's interesting. It's not something that needs to be suppressed, something that needs to be grasped. It's to be observed, to be watched. And if possible, when a thought, runs its course, is born, develops, dies, you notice it's gone. And then maybe there's a fraction of a second before another thought begins. Just experiment with this if you want to, or otherwise just follow the breath, notice feelings in the body. Breathing in, breathing out. before I forget, next week, Ajahn Subhaddo will be leading the class, coming to us from Spain, which is where he lives. So do come yourselves, and of course spread the word to anybody else who might be interested. He's a long-time practitioner in Zen tradition as well as Theravada. He's been a Buddhist monk, now a layperson. And from my point of view, even more importantly, he's been, way back, he was a member of the class, and he and I, would take it in turns to do the Thursday class. So he's a good personal friend, as well as a Dharma friend. So, any questions or comments about tonight's practice? Any aspect of the practice you'd like to ask a question about, or Buddhism in general? Please feel free to either send a chat through. I've got to remember how to kind of get there for this. Where's the chat gone? Right. Okay, so either send a chat through, you know how to do that, or please unmute and just ask a question in the normal sort of human way. Wangdu, I hope people can unmute if they want to. Go ahead, please. Any questions at all? Don't feel shy.
Hi, Colin. It's Todo. Thank you very much, class. Hello. I just wanted to ask a question. When one becomes uncomfortable, when does he know at what point do I need to stay with the discomfort and just observe it, and at what point I want to open my eyes and...
Right. Okay. Good question. And the answer is common sense. Look, it's the difference between feeling uncomfortable and feeling hardcore pain, actually. It's like you can sit here and just feel a bit stiff and all of that. But I mean, the real issue is just not wanting it to be there. I mean, I remember way back when I used to sit on the floor, I used to get quite a lot of cramp in my lower legs, which is quite unpleasant, actually. And I used to move and just stretch my legs out, and that's okay. But then, almost deliberately, I just sat with it, and cramp in the calf of the leg is unpleasant, but it goes away. So what I'm getting at is it's entirely, up to each one of us. And this is not a practice about going through the pain barrier or anything like that. I mean, in the early days when, from my point of view, which go back quite a while, there used to be a very good meditation day at Buddha Padipa, which is still a Thai temple in Wimbledon. It was super to go there, and I would just have a day's meditation. And there was a lay guy leading the class, and it was very good. But it sort of got almost like competitive sitting. Who could sit the longest? There really was this kind of ego trip involved in this. And one could very easily kind of hurt yourself doing this sort of thing. So in the early days, when Buddhism came here, there was this idea that you had to really sit for long periods of time in extreme discomfort. And you could hurt your knees. You really could hurt your knees doing that sort of thing. And that's just not a good idea at all, actually. So a lot of it is just seeing how much of this discomfort or pain is you just don't want it to be there. Any normal human being doesn't want to be there with a lot of pain and discomfort. And just noticing, how much of what we're experiencing is real physical pain, and how much of it is just, I don't want it to be that way. I've got to do something about it. And everybody has to use their own wisdom about what to do next. And it's quite okay. It's quite okay in a period of meditation to change posture. It is. Should encourage that, actually. When you just think about it sensibly, the whole point about Buddhist practice is freedom from suffering. And so we should not be adding to our suffering, least of all by wrecking our knees or anything like that. And I have to say, I was just bowled over when the Thai forest tradition monks first came here back in the mid-late 70s, I guess. And, they could just sit cross-legged, I don't know, half lotus, full lotus, for hours on the floor. They really could. And it was, I don't know, for me, I thought that was absolutely tremendous. And now, guess what? Like me, they've got older. And, when you go to the monastery, you see a couple of them sitting on chairs. And I think, that's great. They're human beings, okay? They're human beings. And as you get older, actually, Ajahn Subhaddo, Ajahn Subhaddo, who's 76, he's 86. And he gives quite a lot of talks. And they're online, by the way. If you want to sort of hear the real thing, go to the Amrawati website, and you can find videos of Ajahn Subhaddo's talks. And these days, he's 86, he sits on a chair. And he's the real deal. He really is. And he sits on the chair. And he says, I'm 76, coming up for 77 in July, I think. And he walks with a stick. His eyesight's not good. He wears hearing aids. And that's okay, that's okay. So feel free to. You see, the going through the pain barrier thing can be, it's just another. I got to do this sort of thing. It's not. So please be practice compassionately, with integrity, but compassionately. That's a balancing act, isn't it? Actually, before the class began, I was talking to Odin at the Buddhist Society, and we were talking about sitting in the lecture room at the Buddhist Society where the class, back in the day was held, and you could sit there, and there were big casement windows at the front of it, and if you sat at the front, which I found myself often doing, the sun would be just blasting in on you, and it was really pretty hot. And this business about shall I move, shall I not move, was there, and it was very interesting to watch the mind doing that. And I'm not saying there's a right answer. The whole of this practice is nature study, investigating all of these things. Suffering, its cause, it begins, it ends. If you're just sitting indoors and there's a lot of light coming in, your mind can go absolutely all over the place. Am I going to pass out? Can I get skin cancer sitting indoors with the sun coming through the window? By the way, I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm not terribly interested in that, but it's like interesting seeing how your mind reacts to that kind of situation. Or if you are sitting on the floor, it's a bit uncomfortable. You just watch the mind of, I can't stick this any longer. And then maybe the sensible thing is to move. But it's like you're mindful the whole time you're noticing this. When you move carefully. And there again, it's quite okay to stand up if you're sitting on the floor, meditating, and that's uncomfortable. Or indeed, if you're getting very tired and very drowsy, stand up. That's perfectly okay. The Buddha encouraged people to practice meditation, to be mindful in all postures. Sitting, standing, sitting, walking, lying down. Yeah. So there you go, Toto. Don't. I hope that helps a bit, but it's your call. Everybody has to use their own common sense, or you can call it your own intuitive wisdom, if you like, fancy terms. But
okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I've got a few coming through on the chat. Oh yes, I've got to tell you. So I've got to tell you that I've got several messages coming through here from the Buddhist Society. Thanks everybody for coming. And then it's all about, I've got to tell you about Founders Day. I think Founders Day is on Saturday. I think that's right. And you can find a link to it, which is appearing on the chat now, if you want to attend Founders Day. Any other questions at all that I might be able to help with?
Hi there, it's Tracy. Could I ask, how long should you meditate for in one session, and should you be doing it every day as a routine thing, or do you do it as and when you feel ready to do it?
I'm laughing. I'm laughing about that. I mean, it's a heck of a good question. I really like the way you put it. Should you do it when you feel like it? Yeah. Well, so I think we should do it when we don't feel like it. How about that? No, first of all, I mean, but how often do you do it? Look, it's like any other skill. The more we do it, the better we get at it. Okay. But everybody here looks to me, I haven't looked at everybody here, but I think we're all lay people here. We're not Buddhist nuns or Buddhist monks. And we all have other commitments. We all have other responsibilities. We have partners and people like that, and kids, for all I know, who really depend on us. So we have other duties to perform because we are lay people. And so we have to fit in our practice with our other responsibilities. We do. If you're a Buddhist monastic, there should be plenty of time to meditate. Well, I was going to say all day, but I mean, there's lots of opportunities for meditation. Although Buddhist monastics, monks and nuns have responsibilities around the monastery that they have to perform. So, I mean, you know, the answer is as long as we can. And this is another, it's like the whole question about sitting and discomfort and all the rest of it. It's like, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Or if you like, cutesy term, it's like a middle way between kind of commitment. You know, yeah, the more I meditate, the more likely it is that one can, you know, realize the benefits of it on the one hand, but on the other hand, you know, I've got other responsibilities. And I think, getting back to your question about when I feel like it or when I don't feel like it, I mean, the important thing is to notice them in all of these situations. My take on mindfulness is just noticing what the mind is up to. So it's like, maybe I get up and I'm feeling a bit grumpy, and I could kid myself that, it's you know, it's like I'm grumpy, I don't feel like meditating. But later in the day, you know, I'll be in a better mood to meditate. And that's good to challenge that, to question that. Because, I mean, moods are so unpredictable, aren't they? So you can think, I'm in a foul mood, or I'm just too tired or something. Or I might just think I'm too busy. And maybe maybe we are too busy. Maybe we've got other responsibilities. But this business about, I'm in the mood to meditate, I'm not in the mood to meditate. Obviously, if we're in the mood to meditate, we don't have other responsibilities to perform, we should meditate. For how long? I don't know. I honestly don't know. If we're starting out, you know, it's like, set a reasonable time. You know, 10 minutes. 10 minutes is great to start with. You know, 45 minutes is unbelievably wonderful. How often? Personally, I find it very helpful to start to do a bit of meditation at the beginning of the day and towards the end of the day, but no, not so far, not so late in the day that I'm, you know, really quite drowsy. But it's nice to sort of start the day, clear the head a bit, just be aware of all these commitments and whatnot coming in, you know, oh, got to do this, that, and the other. All of that stuff, just notice that and get on and do it, perhaps in a better frame of mind than if we hadn't meditated. And then at the end of the day, you know, putting everything to bed a little bit before we do go to bed. But there again, we've all got to work it out for ourselves. We really have. And, you know, clearly the more and the more often, the better. But As I say, we've all got other responsibilities. We're lay people. And you know, I say this, and people think I'm sort of joking or being a bit disrespectful to the monastics. But like the monastics have got a whole routine set up for them to realize enlightenment. And, you know, it's like just like that. Perfect opportunities. You know, the practice is often living in a community along with other people, which is difficult in itself, but lots of opportunities for meditation, you know, for, you know, doing what we said, you know, enthused by compassion and wisdom today in the Buddha's presence, generating the mind of enlightenment for the, but no, gosh, that's what they're, you know, that's what the setup is for there, you know, but we're in a different situation. They're doing it the easy way. Okay, so they have to get up at, I don't know what time, 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, all that sort of stuff, and they only have one major meal a day. They don't have any food after noon or 1 p.m., depending on whether we're on summertime or not. And that's it, you know, and they wear robes and shaven head, and there's no drugs, sex, or rock and roll, you know, and it's like, but that's just the easy way if you want to realize enlightenment, right? We're doing it the hard way. This is the hard way. That doesn't mean it can't be done. But it's more difficult, isn't it? And part of it is like, you know, this practice of doing it for the benefit of other people. So maybe it's just me. I'm just giving you my opinion, which, you know, for goodness sake, don't necessarily believe. But it may be just as important for one's spiritual practice on any particular day or time to forego that in order to help somebody with something else, you know. But there again, it's a question of doing this with integrity. Oh, yeah. There you go, Tracy. I hope this helps and doesn't confuse you too much.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you. I've been setting a same time every night to do it as a routine, and I didn't know if that was the right thing to be doing, or should I be less rigid with what how I do it?
I think routines are very helpful. I really do. I think that's very, very helpful indeed. Yeah, sure. Do it. But there again, I mean, I don't know about your personal circumstances, right? If your personal circumstances and your responsibilities and all the rest of it allow you to have that kind of routine that you're doing, that's unbelievably brilliant. That's absolutely great. You know, if I remember this, I think I can remember this. Probably some American teacher said something like this. When I'm being a Buddhist, it's the difference between, you know, it's like when you're being a Buddhist, you can be a real pain to everybody else. It's that sort of thing. But when you're being the Buddha, that's fine, you know. So it's like, let's say, for lay people, it's all about doing what we're doing with complete integrity, but in the context of being compassionate with other people, performing our responsibilities for other people. And that's part of the practice. That is definitely part of the practice. It's not, you know, it's an attitude of, from my own point of view, and once upon a time when I'd sit at home, I'd try and insist on complete, you know, peace and quiet in the house. I need this, you see. I've got to sit here for 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever. And please, no noise in the rest of the house. Disconnect the telephone. Keep the cat out. All the rest of it. And that's kind of okay, but it's pretty selfish. Pretty selfish. So, you know, we haven't got any cats right now. But in the end, you know, if the cat wanted to come in, it come in. You know, if it wants to sit in my lap while I'm sitting on the floor, that's okay. Are there any other questions or anything that people would like to ask? If not, it has been lovely to be back here with the basic meditation class. Please do come next week because it's a treat with Ajahn Barry Subhaddo. And in the meantime, take care, stay safe, keep well, and maybe even do a bit of meditation. And if you're traveling around London, don't forget to mind the gap. Good night, everybody. Take care.